For these next couple of chapters, we'll have a guest speaker speaking as Sans.
What up? It's Hunter Cottrell. Hashtag LitFam.
Agreed.
Yes. Alright, Chapter 21, The Duel. Quotations, the decision.
Quotation.
I know, quotations.
Parentheses.
Yo, what's up? My name is Sans. I'm a skeleton and it's pretty dope. I'm Taylor's only friend, if I'm being honest. I'm really only his friend out of pity. But anyways, recently, Taylor made a new friend named Theodore. I thought it was pretty lit at first, but then I realized that there was no reason that anyone would want to be Taylor's friend, unless it's out of pity. Or you want him to introduce you to his super hot sister Monica. So I was keeping a close eye socket on Theodore to make sure he wasn't up to anything bad. Sorry, I don't know what that was. It just kind of happens. Anyways, I just thought that Theodore was being nice by giving Taylor dating advice. But I only found out the truth when it was too late.
Oh no.
Theodore was intentionally giving Taylor bad dating advice so that Petra would break up with Taylor, which would make it possible for Theodore to date Petra. Theodore was clever. No one found out while his plan was in progress. But then when he succeeded, he let down his guard. He stopped talking to Taylor. What the fuck? And started dating Petra.
Hey, that's a no-no word.
That's when I got suspicious. And that's when I found out what happened to my knowledge. I'm the only one who has found out. But once I found out, I did not know what to do. Taylor's still bummed that Petra broke up with him, so I don't think it would be a good time to tell him. If I told anyone else, they wouldn't care. My only choice was to confront Theodore. What up? This is your guest speaker. Dropping the mic.
Dropping the mic.
Dropping the mic. Woo! The mic has fallen off the stage and continued to plummet towards the ground.
These sound effects are brought to you by Taylor Tricycles Incorporated.
It has now gone out the exit and is shooting up instantly.
Cool.
Hello guys, this is the chapter 22, voiced by Hunter Cottrell. Shout out to Exotic Slayer and what? Morgs.
And Morg's mom.
And Morg's mom. So, yep.
I love
Alright,
Morgs.
chapter 22. Chapter 22, The Duel, The Confrontation. As I drew nearer to Theodore's house, I heard Witch Doctor playing louder and louder, and I wanted to start grooving to the beat. But I decided that it would be treason to Taylor. I said, I'll give you an... Wait, hold on. I stepped onto Theodore's porch and knocked on the door. Theodore opened the door and said,
I'll give you an autograph for $20.
I'm not here for an autograph, I replied. Theodore was shocked and asked,
Well, what are you here for then?
Your head! No homo. I screamed at him.
Well, let's not do it here.
Theodore reasoned.
I wouldn't want to get your blood all over my expensive furniture.
Theodore took off his signature green hoodie and revealed his Supreme shirt underneath. No, that's Theodore.
No, it's not.
Joke's on you, hater. I retaliated. I don't have blood. Theodore gasped in surprise before saying,
Yo, let's just do it at midnight anyways.
Like in Hamilton? I asked inaudibly. Indubitably. Theodore responded. The only question left is where to duel. Theodore continued.
It's an underpass.
I replied simply, okay. Theodore said,
Okay.
I said,
At midnight tonight we duel.
Theodore said, whilst no homo growling sexily, no homo, I left to prepare.
Do this.
Chapter 23, the duel, the preparation. The first matter to take care of is deciding who my second was. Wink, wink. I debated between Taylor and Papyrus. I think Taylor deserved to know what Theodore did to him, but if I tell him, would that make him hurt more? It was impossible to decide. I cared too much about Taylor to bring him harm, even emotionally. I finally and reluctantly decided on Papyrus to my second. Next it was time for me to be my second. Next it was time for me to get my weapon. I selected the no homo Gaster blaster. No homo. Off my wall. It's as good as anything, I murmured to myself. Through my preparation, I constantly wondered if what I was doing to my the best thing for Taylor. Taylor deserved to know, but it might be too late now. If I told him now, he might no longer be my friend. I looked over everything I had. It was already. The duel was in an hour. I opened my door to leave, but as I left, I turned around to see my framed picture of Taylor on the wall. I felt bad about what I was doing. I glanced over at my phone on the table. If I brought it to the duel, I could tell Taylor then. I didn't have to do it now, I decided. It was the best course of action and grabbed my phone. I made my way to Urchin Underpass.
Wish we could just say we're recording for something that can get us like $10.
In recording. Start.
Okay. Chapter 24. The duel, the start. It was the dead of night. I had arrived. I stared at Theodore with dead eyes. Theodore stared back. I pulled out my no homo Gaster blaster, no homo, and started to fiddle with the trigger. We might as well get started, I said. Theodore simply nodded without saying a word. Papyrus and Alvin were attempting to negotiate peace, but it was hopeless. The duel was going to happen. We stood back. Hamilton music started playing. We started taking our paces.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
I whirled around and pulled the trigger. A cloud of smoke filled the air. For a moment there was silence. The smoke cloud cleared. Theodore still stood there with his loaded gun, staring straight at me. I panicked and pulled the trigger several more times, but it was no use. I was out of bullets. If I wanted to survive, I couldn't continue doing a normal duel. I rushed at Theodore with everything, and everything went black. Then I saw his heart inside the box, moving around. I grinned. Megalovania started playing.
Hello. This chapter will be spoken in ASMR. So, chapter 25, The Duel, Intense Action. I launched a barrage of bones and Theodore dodged about half.
Theodore is at 6992 HP.
69 out of 92 HP. Theodore tried to, no homo, seduce me, no homo.
Excuse the
Why do you
interruption.
do
Buyer's
this?
advice.
Why?
Please report for 125. Thank you.
Literally just it's okay, it's fine. It was only a tiny bit. So.
I severely apologize about that.
Severely.
Theodore tried to, no homo, seduce me, no homo. The nerve of that guy. It's too late for kindness. I launched several no homo gayster blasters, no homo. One just barely grazed Theodore. Theodore is at 42 HP. Theodore's demise was near. I could feel it.
The scent of default dancing fills the air.
It fills you with determination. This time, Theodore actually tried to take a swing at me, but to no avail. I easily dodged the attack. I launched a few more gaster blasters at him, but Theodore's skills seemed to have improved. He dodged them
With ease.
I grumbled to myself and prepared for what Theodore had in store. He ran up to me and tried to throw a couple punches. It was pathetically easy to dodge them. I decided to give Theodore a taste of his own medicine and threw a couple punches of my own. I ran up to him and delivered a couple blows to his stomach.
Oof. Theodore is at 1 health point.
He means HP. The end of the
That's
battle
what
was
it's-
near.
that's what it stands
Theodore was almost dead. But then I made my biggest mistake. I relaxed. While Theodore jumped towards me again, I didn't even try to move. That proved to be fatal.
Sans is at 1 health point left. I mean health
Sans is at 1 HP. I was shocked. Those little fists have a lot of power. I managed to pull myself off the ground. I stared at Theodore with rage in my eyes. I wouldn't let him betray Taylor and get away with it. I shakily raised my gaster blaster and pointed it at Theodore. Then, as I fired the gaster blaster, I shouted to him, "I like you less than Papyrus's spaghetti." I pulled the trigger, and Theodore was engulfed in a beam of light. His body crumbled into ash and fell to the ground. Our next chapter will be read not in ASMR by our guest speaker again. This will be the last chapter written by our guest speaker.
Redden. That's
Red.
not that redden. This will be the last chapter redden by our speaker because that is a word. All right.
I meant red.
Chapter 26.
Like the color.
Chapter 26.
The duel.
The finale. I stumbled over to the pile of ash that was once Theodore.
Dun dun
As I
dun.
stood over it, I stopped. It was harder than I thought it would to defeat Theodore, but it was
Thought it would
worth
be to defeat Theodore.
I had to avenge Taylor's loss. I have defeated the plague that had brought harm to Taylor and possibly many others.
I can't understand you.
I do have to admit it. That
Admit.
his plan was clever. But no one is clever enough to defeat Sans. My face showed signs of glee. I knew I would be able to pull it off. I knew I would be able to avenge Taylor. I started to walk away. I looked back one final time in accomplishment, but I stopped in my tracks. Something was off.
Not clickbait.
I couldn't can't put my finger on it. Something about the ash was wrong. I stepped closer to investigate. Not all the ash was from a living organism. I took out a cluster of fur. Sorry.
While
I had
our guest speaker
previously-
is yawning, I will continue with the ASMR.
Okay.
Okay. Continue.
Okay.
What time is it? Oh, that's what time it is.
It's time to die.
It's about to die.
Oh god, it actually. How much do? Oh, I have 2 hours left. Okay.
Good.
Where is it?
Where do we stop?
But that was obviously not the case. It was attached to a cloth of some sort. It was part of a costume. I wasn't really fighting Theodore at all. That's when I recognized the faint yellow hue to the ash. It was a minion. A minion in disguise of Theodore. I gasped. It all made sense now. The entire time I was in Urchin Underpass with Theodore, he hadn't said a single word. If he had said something, I would have known that it wasn't Theodore. Also, Theodore was way too clever to make such an elaborate plan of getting Petra, while not having a foolproof way to kill me and survive. But I had still won against Theodore. I had defeated his minion, which was his only way to kill me. I grinned in satisfaction. But that's when I felt the gun press against my head. The gunshot rang out through Urchin Underpass. I felt my life slowly draining away.
Oh no.
No, it's too soon. I never got the chance to tell Taylor how I feel about him. Wait, I
Time
have
this
to grab my
interruption.
phone.
Why?
Hear more?
Why?
Why?
Hear more to the main office.
Just keep going.
Okay.
It's their fault.
Wait, I had brought my phone with me. There was still hope to tell Theodore how I feel.
Taylor.
Taylor! How I felt.
I wasn't even reading along and I could still correct you.
Taylor, my true feelings. I had punched in the numbers and held the phone to my head. This would be my dying wish. My last words, at least Taylor would know. A second gunshot rang out. My arm fell to the ground as my life drifted away. For the final time, I looked at the real Theodore, who stood just beside me, grinning with his gun. Then everything went black.
Now it's time for an actually experienced reader to read the rest of the chapters.
Let's do this, boys. I'll do the sound effects.
Okay. Chapter 27, The New Kid. I was in the cafeteria at school when I noticed a kid I had never seen before. I shrugged. I never really cared about new kids in the school. You, am I right? But then I changed my mind when I saw her turn around and saw that she was super hot. I was tempted to sit over at her table, but I was unsure Sans would be okay with that. After all, Sans and I were the only people who sat at our table. I looked around for Sans, but I couldn't see him anywhere. That's weird, I thought. He's almost never absent. Seeing that Sans wasn't here, I was able to sit with the new kid. I turned back to the table that the new kid was sitting at, but I gasped. I gasped.
You gasped?
I gasped when I saw that the table was full already. Wow, she must be almost as popular as me, I thought to myself. The new kid turned around, and when she looked at me, she looked entranced and signaled everyone else at the table to leave. Now that no one else was at her table, now I sat down. The new kid leaned very near to me and said,
Hi.
very softly and sweetly, "Hi," I nervously replied. She was leaning very close to me.
My name is Marina.
She softly whispered into my ear while blushing.
What's yours?
She continued while stroking her hand through my hair. Taylor, otherwise known as Big Chungus, Eater of Worlds, I gulped out.
That's a sexy name.
Marina replied while sliding her hand down my chest. I wasn't all too sure if I was comfortable with this. While she may be super duper hot, I don't love her. I might as well tell her now instead of letting it get out of hand like I did with Jane Animations. I opened my mouth to tell her,
Interrupted by the school principal.
Students
No.
come to the main office with their Chromebook.
Oh.
Ronald Williams, Tehran Lee Cheatham, Anis Farad. Thank you.
I'm keeping this in.
Okay.
I don't care anymore. Where was I? Oh.
I opened my mouth to tell her, but I was interrupted by the school principal. Mr. Krupp walked into the cafeteria.
That is excellent timing. With him opening his mouth to speak and then being interrupted by the school principal. Chapter 28, the announcement.
I finna have an announcement.
The principal yelled to everyone in the cafeteria. After he saw that not everyone was listening to him, he shouted,
Free V-Bucks! Free V-Bucks!
The cafeteria suddenly grew very quiet. A malicious grin spread across the principal's face.
You fools!
He shouted,
It was but a facade. There are no free V-Bucks.
Screams echoed through the cafeteria.
But now that I have your attention,
He continued,
I need to announce the field trip we're having.
Marina gasped attractively.
We will be visiting a 3rd grade class in an elementary school
He rambled on.
to help them make a decision on the activities that they will be choosing next week.
Soon after he said that, he began putting students in pairs to go to different 3rd grade classes. He paired Wyatt Bucket with the thing known as Isaiah Harris, and he paired me with Marina. Marina wrapped her arms around me and growled. Once the principal was done speaking, I made my way over to the school bus to go to the elementary schools with Marina trailing close behind. Very close behind. While I was on the bus, I noticed Theodore sitting next to me, making out with Petra. I was confused at first, but then it became all too clear what was happening. Theodore had stolen Petra from me. I leaped over to Theodore and began punching him sporadically. Blood oozed from his puny little face. He tried to escape, but to no avail. I was just too heavy for him. He eventually wiggled free and swiftly scampered away from me. I will have my revenge, Theodore screamed at me as he fled the bus. I was filled with satisfaction. I stood up to go back to my assigned seat, but I saw Petra in the way with an infuriated look in her face. To cheer her up, I gently caressed her leg. Before I knew it, we were at the elementary school. Chapter 29, The Kiss, a Childhood Decision Maker. As I stepped into the school with Marina, Mr. Krupp assigned the groups into different classrooms. He assigned Marina and I to go into Mr. Ratburn's class. I shrieked. Mr. Ratburn had a reputation for being a super-duper mean teacher. I took a couple deep breaths and gathered my courage. I stepped into Mr. Ratburn's class and gazed at the students with pity. They had done nothing to deserve being put in Mr. Ratburn's class. Marina came in with me and began describing the academies. As I stood there awkwardly, something caught my eye. It was a really cute 3rd grade girl. I instantly fell in love. Her pale yellow skin and purple hair enticed me. Her beautiful dark yellow eyes lured me closer. I couldn't resist it. I pulled away from Marina and approached the 3rd grader. I pulled out a piece of paper and pencil and scribbled down my phone number. The 3rd grader looked away from Marina and gazed at me. I could see the deep infatuation in her eyes as I was lured closer. When I finally reached her desk, I laid down my number. Before I was able to take my hand off her desk, her hand reached out and touched mine. I looked into her deep hazel eyes, and she looked back at me with pure admiration. She was even more beautiful up close. I slowly leaned closer to her and kissed her. Her arms reached out and wrapped around me. I had found true love. I heard Marina pause her speech. She was obviously unhappy with what was happening, but I didn't care. I had never loved anyone more deeply than I did now. After a couple minutes, I pulled myself away. She was blushing. "What's your name?" I softly whispered into her ear. "Jailbreak," she replied. I smiled and kissed her again. This may have been the best day of my life. I gently caressed her hair and lost track of time. Mr. Krupp came into the room and told us we had to leave. I was shocked. I had barely begun. As I pulled myself away from Jailbreak, she called after me, "Meet me at Cafe Salmonella tonight at 8. I nodded with glee. This would be a good night. Chapter 30. The Bus Ride. I was on the bus now, approaching the school again. I didn't have much time to prepare. I didn't want to screw this up like I did with Petra. Jailbreak was the most attractive woman I had ever laid my eyes on. Whenever I looked at her, I felt the compulsive urge to kiss her. I had never felt anything like this before. I spent the majority of the bus ride fantasizing about how we would be together forever. Although Petra was attractive, she was nowhere near the pure level of beauty that Jailbreak is. If Petra breaking up with me helped my dating skills so that I wouldn't screw up my relationship with Jailbreak, it will have been worth it. Meanwhile, on the bus, Marina was desperately attempting to get my attention. "Taylor," she would call, "you're looking fresh today." And I just ignored her. She was probably only saying that because she was jelly of my relationship with Jailbreak. That's when I realized I needed a relationship name. Tailbreak, I tried out. It rolled off the tongue. Marina, still desperate to grab my attention, curled up in my lap. She put her hand in my shirt and slid it down my chest. "Ew, that's fresh," she would quietly murmur to herself. I was visibly uncomfortable. I slapped away her hand as she made another round around my chest. She looked into my eyes with confusion and grief. "I have a girlfriend now," I reasoned. "I don't want to cheat on her." Marina looked defeated. She had curled up in a ball and sobbed quietly. The bus came to a sudden halt. I looked up to see where we were. I gasped when I realized we were already back at the school. I had fantasized for longer than I thought. The rest of the day passed by very slowly. Like usual, I never got any work done like usual, but this time was different. Instead of intentionally procrastinating, I would lose myself in daydreams about Jailbreak. She truly was the one for me. As the date neared by, I did what I could to prepare. I spent the better half of my afternoon just frantically putting together everything I needed for the date. Finally, it had come. I stood in front of Cafe Salmonella with my eyes peeled to the door, impatiently waiting for Jailbreak to arrive. Once she did, my mouth started to water. I had found true love.